of one man who persuaded his friends to watch every Godzilla movie ever made. This world is on the brink of destruction. We need you now, Godzillavangelists! Godzillavangelists, a Geek Stew Network podcast, produced and hosted by Ryan Sargent, featuring Sam Schlenker and Joanna Brodecki. Hey, Sam and Joanna, I got a joke for you. Why is Mechagodzilla's favorite holiday Christmas?
Sam, this feels like one for you.
I don't know. I think the correct answer is why, Ryan.
Why?
Because he's got those mistletoes.
Oh, boy.
Why does Godzilla like eating trains?
I can do this. Why?
Because cars give him gas.
What? That's not even Christmas themed.
Why did you think they were all going to be Christmas themed?
Well, because it is nearly Christmas, and you can't start with Christmas. All right.
I'm sorry, I didn't have 3 Christmas jokes.
I want to be the joke teller next time to try to stump you on the puns, because you would have the answers better than me, potentially.
All right, well, I got one more.
All right.
What do you get when you cross a rose bush, a deceased young woman, and Godzilla?
What do you get, Ryan?
I don't know, but it'll gnaw your arms up. Something fierce.
What? Okay, I got one for you, Ryan. Why didn't Godzilla let Minya watch the movie that we just watched?
Why?
Because it was too Biollante. How's that?
It's a good one. Today we'll be covering.
Guys, wait. Who do I wish would be home for the holidays?
This is gonna be the whole episode.
Oh no! Who do you wish would be home for the holidays?
Erica.
Oh.
That's like a Ricky Gervais joke.
Believe it or not, that's our setup for covering 1989's Godzilla vs. Biollante.
Nailed it.
Joining us today is Brandon Jacobs, who operates the Up From the Depths YouTube channel, which has a ton of great videos about Godzilla and other giant monster movies. He also streams from time to time. So happy to have him here. Welcome, Brandon.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to talk to you about this amazing Godzilla film with you.
This is your favorite, is it not?
It's my personal favorite. I hold the original as like the best. I feel like every Godzilla fan does, but this one's my personal favorite.
I think people who know your channel obviously know some of this answer, but we've got to ask this of every new guest. What has your lifelong Godzilla experience be like? What do you know and feel about Godzilla?
Well, I feel like the origins of my becoming a fan of Godzilla started like a lot of kids with my love of dinosaurs when I was really young. I saw Jurassic Park when I was like 4 years old in the theater and cried at the Velociraptor scene both times. So I've always been obsessed with dinosaurs, and Godzilla is basically a giant dinosaur. So I would see a toy of him or see like a movie in the video rental store and be like, I want to watch that. And so the first one I ever saw was Godzilla 1985, the Americanized version of Return of Godzilla.
That's funny. That's literally what we just covered.
Yeah. And I just remember not really caring about anything else but Godzilla. And I remember being very sad when he fell in that volcano. Like, I always remember distinctly that screech when he falls in the volcano. Like, that stuck in my mind forever.
Haunting screech. Keeps me up at night still.
We talked about that and how that's one of the great changes for the Americanization.
Yeah, there's a lot of good changes in the American version.
That's great. So, do you have a philosophical take on Godzilla, since you're one of our more intense fans that we've had on the show?
Yeah, I look at him basically as a representation for both nature's wrath in general and mankind's scientific hubris in tampering with the forces of nature. And so anything within that sphere, whatever the story is that's being told, Godzilla usually, the best of them kind of represent something along those lines.
And that makes a lot of sense with why this is your personal favorite. Because that's pretty much exactly the track he's on in this one. So, to talk a little bit about this movie's production, gotta do it as always. As we mentioned last time, the Return of Godzilla did not live up to financial expectations. So, producer Tomoyuki Tanaka put Godzilla on ice for quite a while again. He was content to let Godzilla bring in the merchandising money without the cost of a new movie. But in early 1987, he decided to start considering new ideas, and he had Toho run another writing contest like they did with Terror of Mechagodzilla. And his one stipulation this time is that Godzilla had to fight another monster this time. He wanted to bring back the commercial appeal of those glorious giant monster fights. And guess what movie came out to great financial success in early 1987 Japan?
I think I know this one.
I'm just a mean green mother from outer space, and I'm bad. Outer space.
Little Shop of Horrors did big business in Japan. And so with that movie fresh on his brain, dentist Shinichiro Kobayashi wrote the winning entry in this story contest, which...
Dentist Steve Martin wrote the... That has like a triple meaning, because we have a Steve Martin in the series as well, but I was referring to the Little Shop of Horrors character. I feel like Little Shop of Horrors is probably the greatest intersection of musicals and things Ryan likes.
Yeah.
1,000%.
I feel like we are lying on that, Ryan. I feel because I also have fond memories of seeing that play in school, and I think that's precisely because it involves a plant monster. That's how you're gonna get me to be into like musical theater, is if you throw in a plant monster. Or something
I've always thought of Little Shop of Horror as the musical for people who don't like musicals. It's so good. But anyway, that's not what this episode's about. So to be fair to Mr. Kobayashi, he also incorporated the themes of genetic manipulation and the fears of you losing his young daughter in the script, which are great ideas. So the script was picked up by director-writer Kazuki Omori, who would play a major creative role in the rest of Godzilla's 90s output, and they went with it. But unfortunately, as far as I can tell, this movie also had a pretty lukewarm box office reception.
Yes.
That's why it took some time for the U.S. rights to be picked up in a partnership by HBO and Miramax, which is maybe the first time Godzilla's life has intersected with a real-life monster. And in any case, they sat on it until 1992. If I remember right, Toho even sued them because they weren't releasing the movie. But they finally put it out on video and cable in the U.S. And it was the straightest transfer ever, basically unchanged for the first time. So yeah, that's how little old Godzilla vs. Biollante got going. As always, I've got to ask for your quick 3-line thoughts on the movie before we get into the synopsis.
I can't wait for my mind to be changed over the course of this podcast, because I did not have a good time with this movie.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's interesting, Joanna, because usually we're kind of aligned, but I kind of, watching it, like I do think there's some plotting weirdness, but I thought this one was kind of lit. I was kind of like, this is kind of, this, I don't know, this is kind of doing it for me. So yeah, I'm a fan. I actually enjoyed this one more than almost all, actually.
Wow.
What?
That was unexpected.
I didn't really know what to expect here, honestly. I figured you guys might not like it, but I'm surprised. I guess you guys are kind of divided, at least between the
Sam,
two.
I thought you were going to be on my side, but I think maybe there's something about the 80s-ness of the film that probably won you over. So
This one's pretty 80s. No,
the spy and 80s stuff, I feel like could swing you on.
I think there's to me, unusually good craft in a lot of the action stuff, and kind of like conceptually the action stuff. That like it felt especially well done, to the point where like when that stuff happened, it was actually kind of there was spectacle in this one in a way that it hasn't always been. And so then, when they're talking about like when they're confusing gene splicing versus bacteria and using them interchangeably, I'm a little like I'm kind of like that seems odd. But like at least we have some pretty awesome. We have an awesome monster, and we have some awesome Godzilla getting hit with many explosions that look great.
And we have Erica. Always in our hearts.
Poor Erica.
We
literally hardly knew you.
Literally, that's my first note. Why do I? Okay, we'll get into it.
All right. Well, that's a little more in depth than usual, but I'm glad we've got an interesting conflict set up. So let's get into the synopsis.
Yep.
Wait. What about you two though? The quick 1-2 sentence.
Well, for me, I said this last time, so this isn't really a spoiler. I traditionally call this my favorite of the 80s and 90s series. And while I do still enjoy it a lot, watching it with a couple people made me wonder if that's still the case. So I'm a little up and down on it. So so we'll see. We'll see at the end of this episode, and maybe even the end of the 90s, if it still takes the number one slot. If it's not number one, it's still probably going to be number two, though. So I'm not really super on your side either, Joanna.
So don't get too excited.
Yeah. Brandon, what were your quick thoughts seeing this again?
I think the best way to describe this one is like a beautiful mess, because I do think there are like the movie moves at such a quick pace, and there's so many characters and so many like little things going on that it can kind of get overwhelming, and none of it's super fleshed out except for I think the main storyline of Biollante. But I just really enjoy how ambitious it is, especially with what's going to be coming after. It's just this neat little portion of the franchise where they are actually really experimenting and trying to push the art form to a new level, and it doesn't always hit every time, but when it hits, I think it hits pretty hard.
I think I can agree a lot with that. The big swings are what makes Biollante for me. But saving some of this for the judgment, let's dive right into the synopsis. Immediately after Godzilla's 1984 rampage, some of his cellular material is smuggled out of the country by a secret agent from the Middle Eastern country of Sarabia.
With a Russian accent. I think. Was that who that was? I was so confused. Continue.
We don't know what a Saranian accent sounds like, to be fair.
The cells are meant to be used in experiments by the geneticist Dr. Shiragami, but his daughter Erica is killed during a bombing by corporate saboteurs from BioMajor. Morning. Dr. Shiragami returns to Japan and merges Erica's cells with a rose bush in an effort to keep her alive.
Of course, as one would.
5 years later, psychic children at an institute run by Asuka Okochi predict Godzilla's imminent return. Asuka's boyfriend, scientist Kazuhito, and JSDF Lieutenant Gondo team up to create anti-nuclear bacteria to defeat Godzilla if he should return. By the way, this was a nightmare of a synopsis to write because there's so much going on in the first 10 minutes of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
You are helping to clarify a lot for me because I was confused.
But moving on. They seek help from Dr. Shiragami, who refuses until quakes from Mount Mihara damage his rosebush. He then uses his new access to the Godzilla cells to merge them with the roses and Erica in an attempt to restore the plant. This creates the plant monster Biollante, who stops BioMajor and Saradian agents from stealing the rest of the cells, and escapes to nearby Lake Ashi. In an effort to get the anti-nuclear bacteria, BioMajor threatens to blow up Mount Mihara and free Godzilla. Kazuhito and Gondo try to make an exchange after the government gives in, but the Seradian agent kills the BioMajor agent and takes the bacteria.
It's that Seradian agent again.
He's brief, but he gets the job done.
Yeah, it may have just been in the dub, but his voice was very surprising when he spoke. It was just like, blast, I got it. It's like
He sounds like Craig.
I mean, I think we'll get into this, but I think you'll be glad you watched the dub, frankly.
Yes.
In any case, Godzilla is freed. Biollante calls out to Godzilla to lure him into a battle, which the Big G wins handily. Psychic Miki also manages to delay Godzilla's assault on Osaka, giving Gondo enough time to recover the anti-nuclear bacteria. The JSDF fires injections of the bacteria into Godzilla, but he kills Gondo and doesn't seem affected at first. Dr. Shiragami proposes they need to raise Godzilla's body temperature.
I can do better. Hold on. Let me do a raising.
There we go. The JSDF uses the Super X2, an artificial lightning storm, and superheated plates to heat up Godzilla, but he only seems somewhat affected. Just then, Biollante returns from the stars to give Godzilla a rematch. And while the plant monster is damaged, she manages to heat up Godzilla enough that he collapses. And then we get to the not-so-good ending of this movie. Dr. Shiragami is killed by the Seradian agent, who is killed by the JSDF leader Kuroki, and then Godzilla walks into the ocean.
As he often does.
And what? I thought we were mad at him, but now we're just letting him go.
He's leaving.
He's leaving.
It's all good.
Well, we'll get into... There initially was a better motivation for that, but we'll tackle that a little bit later. I don't know why they cut it out.
Dubious.
I mean, I just can't get over the super happy fun times, like, gotta go to bed. What? Well, can I join you? If you don't snore. Oh, I snore all the time. I snore.
And the freeze frame.
Yes, I hate the freeze frame so much. I hate unnecessary freeze frames in movies when they do that.
I was like, what is this, fucking Cheers? Like, what are we watching?
Also, like, they're like, the old man just, like, literally got murdered in front of them.
I know.
They're just like...
He's like, the doctor?
And she's like, you look like Batman. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of... I think it's
it?
actually deeper than we think. It's like one of those, like, they're in one of the first stages of grief situations, because it's the only way to explain the way that they're...
Right, it pushed them closer together.
Yeah, we're ahead of ourselves.
Well, no, we can
though.
start by talking about Asuka and Kazuhito. I do like that there's a
let's
genuine
start.
warmth between them, because we've talked about how some of the couples in these movies seem more forced. They seem to like each other.
I'll give them that. They are good actors, yes, which we don't always have the benefit of.
Unfortunately, there's not much left to say about them.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many plots and characters that, just like everything else, it's pretty shallow. Like, there's really not really.
Guys,
not
I
much
think
to
that's
it.
why I had a lot of anxiety watching this, because I like, we've seen it, but I just really, like, I was like, oh man, here are really deeply, we're steeping ourselves into these early Kyle Chandler-esque beginnings where we're going to have 1,000 plot points and a million things going on and 10,000 science words thrown around that they keep skipping and jumping, and it just gave me a lot of anxiety of knowing the future that was to come after this film because of it.
Yeah, we can't complain anymore about the overly lit in these American new ones, the giant casts of half-dimensional characters. It's a legacy thing,
right? And like, oh, the young girl. Okay, we had the little girl. Like, we're just stepping into it very seriously at this point.
I think just go all the way and make Millie Bobby Brown a psychic.
They should.
Just lean
That
into
was actually one of the rumors when King of the
Exactly.
Monsters was being made. Was people were like, "Is she gonna have psychic powers?"
Wait,
like,
really?
Yeah, Miki Sagusa. Yeah, Like,
Oh, I didn't know that.
so I didn't. Yeah.
That would be more interesting than her just being a girl.
I hate to be mean too, but she's best. You know, the silent acting is her strongest point.
As 11.
Anyways, I don't want to be mean. But
That's all right. I don't think Millie Bobby Brown is listening to this.
good. She better not.
Well, certainly won't be now.
But
Yeah, she was listening before, but she turned it off.
Millie, if you're a fan, write in and we will personally apologize.
Yeah,
to
I'll
you.
apologize.
She's like, I can read someone's mind right now that they're listening to that podcast and they're saying mean things about me.
Yeah, Millie, I'm just a jealous actor, okay?
It's interesting that you bring up like how this is found in like the modern American Godzilla movies, this type of storytelling, because this is the beginning of the conscious attempt by these Godzilla movies to bring in Western influences. From this point all the way until the rest of this era, there is heavy emphasis on very popular American films in the action scenes and the storytelling. You'll see it when we go into the next film. And the one after that.
There's always from here on out. There's like a hilariously transparent like ripoff of an American movie in some way.
Yeah.
It's very funny. You'll
think of the most popular action adventure and science fiction films from the 80s,
early
and
90s.
You'll recognize. Yeah.
Is Arnold Schwarzenegger going to show up in one of them?
It's funny. It's funny you say that. In a sense.
I can read minds. Just kidding. All right. Anyways, back to the movie at hand.
Since we brought up Psychic, I'll toss out Miki, who, if you don't find this controversial, Brandon, somebody listening is going to. And you know, write in, tell me why I'm stupid. But Miki Segusa is actually a recurring character for the rest of this series. And she's one of the most worthless recurring characters of all time, in my opinion.
Okay. There is no real, like, I feel like we love King Kong, the new one, because that's like the only relationship that's formed is between the little girl and King Kong. Like, there's no real closeness. They're saying there's a connection, there's some emotionality behind it that they want from us, but I don't like catch any of it. Yeah. So Ryan, I'm curious to see if I continue to be in agreement with you.
Plays pretty much the same tiny role in the next two. And then in the next three, they start beefing her up and giving her some more, but it's too little too late, in my opinion. I like the concept of there being psychics in this universe. It works for me. Like, yeah, they'll throw anything at the wall to try to beat Godzilla. You know, let's see if these kids with ESP can do something about it. Which...
It's introduced so matter-of-factly, too. Like, oh yeah, there's psychics.
I know.
The scene where they all hold up those photos of Godzilla and are like, screaming is terrifying.
Yes.
That was one of my favorite moments. I loved it.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite scenes. I love that moment in this movie. It's one of my personal favorites of the whole franchise.
So good. I want to steal it.
And the theme starts playing.
Just like, it's so funny and so creepy at the same time. Just the dread it builds, which is one of the best things about the opening, is the anticipation it builds for like Godzilla being a real threat that's on the horizon. Although the very beginning, I don't know why they open up with the G threat meter. It seems like the better move would be to start with that cool shot of zooming out from Godzilla's cells all the way to that shot of him burning in the flames of the volcano.
Speaking of which, did you guys, the version you watched, did it have like translations for the Godzilla warnings on screen?
Yeah.
It did? Okay.
Oh, I
took
did
notes
not.
for it, but then they never came back.
Yeah,
It was like, level 1, we suspect he's here. Level 2, we hear him in the distance. Level 3, somebody sees him. Level 4, he's in Tokyo or something like that.
Yeah, Godzilla is free. That's like, I think that's the final level.
Exactly.
Yeah, that whole system is kind of cool as a way to like ramp the movie up, but yeah, I wish they hadn't started with it, because it's kind of like a weird like clinical tone to start the movie on. But yes, let's see, other characters. People like Gondo, and I like Gondo. Like, he's very quippy and silly. I like how he seems to almost welcome Godzilla's return.
Yeah, He's one of my favorite human characters in the franchise because he's like sees Godzilla as a challenge, and he is like actually excited that he's appearing. Like everything else, he's not super fleshed out or anything, but for like a supporting role, I think he's one of the better ones.
I agree with that. What do you guys think of Gondo?
I liked him. I wish that his death was like. It's one thing to be kind of like weirdly accepting of your inevitable death and having a quip, but he doesn't even. It's like he doesn't even have that moment of like recognizing like, oh fuck, I'm like this is the end. Like he's just like I got a joke, like which is kind of a bummer. Like I was kind of hoping for like a little something, like even if it's just like him just you see the panic for a moment and you're like, oh man, isn't this about right? Hey, you want to smoke Godzilla? Like something. But yeah, so that was my only. Like I wish there was some kind of humanizing there at the end. But what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? Yeah, I feel similarly.
Yeah, he's Gondo now.
Aw, Sam, good one.
And Joanna, always got to ask you about the scientist character. What do you think of Dr. Shiragami?
The Erica thing, I really couldn't get on board with. I think because she was introduced so quickly and died so quickly that then when that was kind of the whole continued motivation, I just was like, all right, let's and also like, was no one mad at him about creating the monster?
I think Kazuhito yells at him once,
right? Like
on the pier.
Yeah.
But like, it seemed like he almost created something that would be more destructive than Godzilla. And once it, went up into the stars and came back down, it was like, oh shit, how are we ever going to get rid of this thing? But he did not seem to sweat for a second of like, oh man. So he did not pull me in like they usually do.
I was kind of like the plotting of it was odd, and I was kind of thinking about, like, why is this weird? And I think the reason it was weird, his bringing back of Erica through the Godzilla cells, is it's like there's one too many steps. It's like he put her cells with the flowers to try to make a Erica and flower thing, and then he gives the Godzilla cell, mixed Godzilla cells to bring back the flowers and thus her, I guess. And then it becomes big, and he's like, Erica? And they're like, nah, she's all flower now. And he's like, oh, all right, I guess it's just a flower. Like, to me, I think the simpler way to do it would be he gets the Godzilla cells, there's that earthquake, and somehow the samples get mixed up. And he thinks he's combining Godzilla cells with Erica. And then actually he, because of the earthquake, it mixed them up, and he puts them with the flower, and it's like, oh, I made a giant flower monster instead of a giant Erica monster. Or in theory, bringing Erica back, like, seems clearer to me. And then yeah.
And I think they always try to get to this like emotionality of like, it's not the monster's fault, it's us who are the monsters that create them. But I think like leaning on the monster being kind of Erica still just like didn't work, because like it wasn't Erica. Like Erica sucked if that's who she was. Like there was no niceness to this monster, so it just was not able to. I was like, you guys need to get over it. She's dead. Okay, so move along.
I mean, did Biollante actually do anything truly destructive or bad other than killing those BioMajor agents? I mean, she just kind of hung out in the lake for a little while and then got killed and then came back.
The second, in fairness,
I get
when the second one appears, it does smash some tanks and stuff.
Oh, that's true. That can't be helped when you're a giant monster. You don't know where your appendages are going.
She didn't do anything nice though. She just kind of like existed and then like fought Godzilla. Like there wasn't too much of a meter one way or the other.
Well, she's also as much Godzilla as she is Erica, so she's probably fighting that urge. But of course, none of this is really touched upon.
It's like a classic werewolf Lupin scene, like Harry Potter fighting the monster inside.
She died in such a violent way. She's like an angry ghost lashing out at the world. Anyway, I see both perspectives of it.
But yeah, if she was if this monster was just acting out of revenge against the people that blew her up, that would make more sense to me too. Instead of just hanging out. Like, I didn't quite get that. If she was just suddenly attacking the lab that was sending all the people, that would be kind of awesome.
Yeah.
But instead it was kind of more of like it's this anti-Godzilla tendency it has that still doesn't, I can't quite reconcile with the like, well, because it is Godzilla, thus it must attack Godzilla, is kind of weird to me.
Well, if I remember correctly, they actually say Biollante was calling out to Godzilla, so it's almost like it was like, come to me, and then Godzilla, being Godzilla, was all like, I want to kill you, and then Biollante got pissed off about that and attacked him.
That's
later.
an interesting take on it. I never thought of it that way, that Biollante was like calling Godzilla out of loneliness of some kind.
Shiragami says like they're the same being, so her calling out to Godzilla is almost like, come join me, but then Godzilla was an asshole like he usually is. So
that's, yeah, see, there's all sorts of interesting ways to look at it, and I do like that aspect of it, is there's very weird, cool stuff at play. But I also see the side of it where there should have been more commitment to one side of it or another, where she is either this very vengeful thing, or you see, like, I don't know, like a little kid falling in the lake and nobody can get out to the kid, and Biollante lifts him up with a little vine, something to show that she's very gentle.
Yeah, I guess I like had trouble seeing Erica in the flower monster, except for when they so beautifully floated her portrait up above it.
that's one of the cheesiest moments. Yeah.
Other than that, I hope when I pass years from now, I fucking hope that happens to me, man.
To see your portrait floating.
My headshot from when I was 15 just floating up above me.
I kind of love that.
Yeah, you gotta choose the best pet shot.
Yeah, exactly. I did like the sign. I did like his at-home setup and some of his outfits. While he was at home, he looked very comfortable and he looked like he had a great house. So those are the bonus points I did give to him.
Those scenes also have like all the BioMajor and Seradian agents in it. And if you watch the dub, nobody in the dub is great, but it saved you from having to hear their original voices in the Japanese version, where all these characters speaking English are so terrible, and some of them can barely even do it. Like, it's
distractingly bad. Like
it makes the opening like 20 minutes of the movie so goofy, because they're like, it's kind of embarrassing. So this is one of the movies where I would thoroughly recommend watching the dub instead, because at least then it all fits together.
Yeah, I remain fascinated by casting of Americans in Japanese movies. Because they clearly are getting work as actors doing this. It's like they must look and sound extra American, despite not actually being the best American actors.
And in the case of the BioMajor agents, they're literally wearing American flag headbands when they first show up.
just to be clear.
Classic.
So I don't know if this is in the dub or not, or which version it's in, but in the opening scenes of the movie, Asuka's talking to Dr. Shiragami about her father's idea for saving the semen of Nobel Prize winners.
That was in the dub.
Which seems like a wild idea, and not a very good one, actually.
Wait, I missed that. I didn't catch that. I didn't watch the dub though, so.
Oh, that might have just been a dub line then. I'd have to compare. I don't know.
Yeah, it was in that. It was in the dub for sure, where he's like, your controversial but interesting research on preserving the semen of Nobel Prize winners to create smarter future generations. And he's like, yeah, they're not ready for it yet, but someday. Yeah.
Okay, I would have remembered that.
That's a bizarre take.
Yeah, there is this when I said that we should have a switch up where he's like, oh, I mixed the cells with the flower instead of with Erica. That's the thing is, oh no, I mixed the cells with Albert Einstein's semen, and then just
Einstein Godzilla.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to draw that now.
Any listeners out there, if you want to make a monster-fied Nobel Prize winner, I don't even know if Einstein won a Nobel Prize. I feel like he may not have.
I can't remember.
Controversial.
Please run with this if you wish to create some awesome fan art.
He's giving out ideas here for free, boys and girls. Take them while you can.
but there are a lot of really interesting and fun ideas in this movie. I love to name just a little one, the Godzilla Memorial Lounge, where they preserved where his foot came through the ceiling. I'm like, that's such a clever idea. Like, somebody would do that in a post-Godzilla world.
And I feel like that's one of the first instances of this franchise like doing something like that, because the Showa era never really tried to establish continuity in that sense, in that way. And so it was kind of cool to see like how the previous movie impacted society after the fact.
I liked that, and I liked the idea that terrorists would blackmail the government with the threat of releasing Godzilla. I'm like, yeah, in the world where he exists, that makes sense that somebody would try that. And even the idea that everyone wants the unique power of his cells is a really cool sci-fi premise. Even though they're pretty vague about Godzilla's cellular power in this one, I feel like they didn't really clarify what they do until Godzilla 2000. But I guess you could kind of read it in that he's got a very strong regenerative capability.
The other thing that I thought was really good about this was I felt like conceptually every sort of set piece was very deliberately different, and that was something I really liked, where it was like there, you have a one-on-one kind of like classic monster fight, but you also have Godzilla versus the ship that reflects his beams back at him, which was very different. You have the scene of the scene where they're trying to capture him, where they have the minefield and they do like the super 80s Tron computer like sim of where all their like their kind of mines are, and then you watch a scene of them trying to execute that plan, and it's just like that is something I often found kind of lacking in some of the previous ones, especially like I would say the first era, where it's like they're very deliberate in what kinds of scenes each action scene is, and that's something I appreciated quite a bit.
Yeah, I like that too, that they vary things up and that they went for different types of stuff than they had before. The ambition of the crew was really cool.
I think this is a great Godzilla response film. That's like a certain type of Godzilla film where the plot is about how do we stop him, and I feel like this is one of the better ones because it's so meticulous and there's so many different strategies they implement to try to stop him. And as a Godzilla fan, I just find that very entertaining.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this is where my perception of the film just differs in my overall general like taste and interest in things, because I was like, oh my God, so much military and science jargon in this one. Like, I wasn't viewing it as like, oh, this is separate, this is different. I was like, oh, we're back at the ship thing? My God.
To be fair, Joanna, I did, so again, as someone, I liked the movie. I found the middle to be, I know it's a faster paced movie overall than a lot of the others, but I felt the same way. It was like, boy, there's a lot of talking about cells in the middle.
Yeah.
Like it kind of had, early on I was like, oh, I like the craft and I like the inventiveness, and then there was kind of a lull in the middle. I was like, oof, all right, let's get it moving. And then, but then I actually, again, once we kind of got into those set pieces, I just thought they were so much, again, to me, comparatively better done than so many of the other movies that we've watched, that I was kind of like, yeah, I'm back in.
Looking at it objectively from that perspective, like, I definitely see that. I think we also know that of the favorites of my films that we watch, like, they're always like quirky, they're like surfing, they're like on an island, they're like kids on an island, or there's some wackiness. So once they get deep in the weeds on the military stuff, I'm always like, all right.
So 80s guitar solos don't do it for you?
One of my favorite 4 things was the soundtrack and some of the cuts. Like the cut they did where like it was like kind of a serious moment. I can't remember exactly what. And then suddenly they cut to some 80s like rock concert, like rock sound. And then 3 seconds into that, they go, hey guys, sorry, the concert's canceled. Godzilla's headed here. That was another, similar to the drawings, amazing beat in the film.
Right, so the BioWars theme, the rock version of Godzilla's theme at the very beginning, what do you guys think of that? Because I feel that's some people like it, some people don't. I don't particularly, am not fond of it, but I could see how people would
I had
like
a great time with it. Not looking at it too closely.
I ironically enjoy it, but yeah, the music, and in particular the music editing,
Yeah.
is pretty bad in this movie. And in fact, so bad that Akira Fubuke heard about it and came out of retirement to score 4 of the 5 remaining movies in this series. So he was so pissed off at the electric guitar version of the Godzilla theme that he's like, all right, if you're gonna do this to my music, I'm coming back.
But it was of the time, you know? I felt really like, yeah, let me perm my hair. Let me make my hair big and wear a neon top. I don't know.
No, it certainly isn't good.
Right.
Again, it's such a big swing that it's those music edits, I wouldn't even say they're bad as much as they're just way overly, they're just aggressive. It's just like, that wasn't even a transition. It's just like, but it gives it an energy, if nothing else, where I feel like, again, I'm not bored by the music. I'm constantly reminded that it's there and that it's doing a lot of things.
It has a lot of variety because you have somber mood pieces, but then you have like the Super X theme, which is like this most like bombastic, almost John Williams-esque soundtrack. Yeah, it adds like bombacity and cheesiness to
that's
it.
what I think is funny. There are some moments where like this somber orchestral theme is really setting in.
Yeah, there's no identity to it.
No.
Whatsoever. No. I couldn't tell you like what kind of score this movie has. It's just, it has all of the score.
It's an indescribable mess. Anyhow, so we've talked a little bit about the effects and the set pieces, and there's a new effects team that starts here, led by Koichi Kawakita. And I'm not going to be bold and say the work stands up to the average of 1989, but as we've talked about, I love that they made an effort to use new techniques and reach a new certain level of polish. And I will say Biollante especially is incredibly impressive for the budget they had, that they made this gigantic latex monster with all the wire works on her tentacles and everything.
The mouths on both of the monsters, too, were looking real good. And they had a lot of close-ups on it. But
lots of slime dripping off their mouths. Very, very visceral.
Hella teeth.
This is definitely the gooeyest Godzilla movie.
I would go on a limb and say this is, I mean, and again, obviously you have the benefit of it being the most recent of the run that we've watched. So, but like, it was the best. Visual effects-wise, I thought it was the best one that we've up to this point, and also like in a bunch of ways. And also, I think Biollante is the best looking, both from a design and effects perspective, best looking Godzilla foe up to this point for me. So you can fight me, Ryan.
I don't know that I'm that inclined to fight you, because it is a great design, and she's definitely in my top 10, maybe in my top 5 monsters. It's just a really cool idea. Looks super cool, especially the second form. But I gotta give it up for Mothra, Hedorah, and King Ghidorah.
I knew he was gonna say that.
Those 3 are so good in so many different ways. But Biollante's definitely way up there for me.
I think more than most of the monster effects in this franchise, I think Biollante really holds up even after all this time. I think it benefits from it not being a man in a suit. It's all puppetry, extremely complicated puppetry. And just the shots that they use and the angles really do a good job of hiding the artifice. Especially in the final form, I find it still holds up even after all these years. Like, obviously, you know, it's a puppet and everything, but I think it's still really impressive.
It's a gorgeous piece.
Yeah, I think too, when she came back, all of the vines going through the earth too, like ripping up through the ground, that was a really cool element. And just the way that she would splice at Godzilla. Like, even though up to that point in the film I was not that enthused about it, objectively the fight scene between them was very impressive and fun.
It's pretty gruesome too. He gets his hand impaled. He gets the stigmata.
She like vomits up gold. I don't know what was happening at that one part, but
it's supposed to be radioactive sap.
Sap, got it.
But yes, it's just a lot of green sparkly goo.
I thought it was little stars.
I don't know. We're getting into larva Mothra silking territory again. I may not like this movie anymore.
It made me think of slime, and that's maybe because of the recent conversations we've been having around like slime and slime house. But I was like, oh yeah, sick, green slime.
Yeah. Another thing I just want to mention, excellent explosions throughout.
Oh yeah.
Really good
Yeah.
explosions.
Fantastic. And Godzilla's legs, thighs looking good and meaty as ever in this one. The close-ups, you know?
He gets a little, in some of these, they do some kind of angles on Godzilla that I don't remember seeing a lot of, where we kind of get like these kind of foreshortened like miniatures where the camera, you know, like where it's like a different kind of rig. And whenever they shoot up at Godzilla, on the one hand, he looks unusually big, but he looks kind of stiff and mechanical. Is there a reason for that? There are some shots where he's looking a little like a giant robot.
You know, I don't know. I guess maybe it's because this design gives Godzilla like very muscular chest and shoulders. Like maybe it wasn't as flexible.
I would imagine that look just comes from the fact that it's a really heavy suit, and the actor's trying to, even more so than previous ones, and he's just doing his best to try to convey movement. Comes off a little stiff because you can only move so much with all that weight on you.
Sorry, I just was reminded my aunt one time got her little tiny dog a holiday sweater, and the sweater was like 12 to like really heavy, and the dog was like 6 pounds, and he just trying to move in it was impossible. I just love the idea that in 1980 whatever, there's a man in a suit just trying to do his best.
As we've discussed, it's a hard job.
What do you guys think of this Godzilla design now that since we're on?
Yeah, I was
Godzilla?
just gonna say, this is design is. I mean, there would be some tweaks, but this is more or less what he's gonna look like for the rest of the '90s series, and it is one of the most popular designs among the fandom. So, what do you guys think about it?
It's it's probably my favorite, I would say, out of all the designs. I think part of it is because I have a connection from my childhood. Like, this was the newest series when I was like in the deepest in my fandom when I was a kid, and so I just remember really connecting with it, and it became one of the most like iconic. I think Shin Godzilla is now the face of Toho now, but for the longest time, this design was the one that Toho would promote as being Godzilla.
I'm impartial to the look of Godzilla '98.
I'm glad you said impartial. To come back to the effects crew again real quick, I love that Mr. Kawakita carries on that Tsuburaya legacy of fantastical imagery to some extent, because I got this quote from him just after Jurassic Park came out. He said, "I enjoyed the film, but it was too realistic. It would have been much more enjoyable if some fantasy elements had been incorporated into it," which is just a great statement. It tells you everything you need to know.
Just own Spielberg right there.
That's always been one of the things that people who don't maybe consume a lot of Japanese special effects films kind of can't square, is just that difference in philosophy. Like, the Japanese seem to like embrace fantasy and artifice more, whereas American films are more like, we got to make it as realistic as possible.
Yeah, that's always been one of my like big championing calls for like defending the Godzilla movies. Is everybody assumes if something's not realistic, it was a mistake and it should be laughed at. And in some cases, that's not actually the case.
Guys, how cool would it have been if there was this bigger pool, Biollante, good versus evil, trying to get her to the good side, and there was a scene with the girl and then all the children from that school behind her, and they were all holding hands trying to make her be a good plant monster. I think that would be really cute.
I love that idea. It came out of nowhere, but I love that you pitched this idea.
And we see little pink spouting out of their brains. I'm just saying, I'm just brainstorming here.
I love it. One thing that is very fantastical is when they're fighting that Seradian guy at the oil plant or whatever, and they hit him over the head. It's the cartoony boom coming off.
That always stuck out to me, even when I watched it as a kid. I'm like, what was that? Like, all of a sudden, this became a cartoon for like a brief moment.
Well, it's similar to the freeze frame they had at the end. They just got a little confused at points in time about what this movie was.
That guy is hilarious.
Yeah.
And then, you know what? I'm just gonna say it. A plus, 10 out of 10 death. Absolutely flawless. The best like non-monster death in this series that I can think of, hands down. A plus.
It is a great one. It just gets vaporized off that plate.
And it was set up, like, again, they set it up. It was great.
And we got the reward of the guy, like, seeing it go on the other end of it. Yeah, that was great.
My only question is how did he know that he was there?
Right. I was just going to say.
ESP.
They all have ESP.
They all have ESP.
Is he like a secret psychopath? He just saw that somebody was on the plate and just pressed the button.
Yeah.
It's his gut feeling because he's such a good, he's young. He has a lot on his shoulders, but he really knows his shit. He knows what he's doing.
Maybe there's no way to know if anyone's on it, and he just happened to be in that room and had serious OCD. It was just one thing that hasn't been... And that's why he looked so satisfied after he's done it. He had no idea he killed the guy.
I vaporized something. I don't know what it was, but...
It just feels good to get rid of that one final mine. Question for I guess both Ryan and Brandon. Is this the first car chase in one of these movies?
We skipped the Megalon, which has a car chase.
I can't say for sure.
I can't think of another one apart from Megalon.
Well, that was fun. I liked that as well.
Yeah, I loved it. Brief but effective.
I also really like the scene in the rain, which is really hard to do with miniatures because it's easy for the scale to look wrong with the water droplets. So I'm really impressed they went for it, and it's the first time we see Godzilla in the rain, and it looks super cool.
Godzilla in the rain.
Like, I feel like those two people were standing there, and they're like, blah, 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 and then suddenly, downpour out of nowhere.
No warning at all. It just comes, not even like a thunderclap or anything. It just...
I was ready for it was like the electronic guitar solos that came in throughout the film, but I wish they were tied together.
Also, I don't know what they were doing there in that situation. I like how we just come in the middle of, like, apparently a conversation we're having, I guess.
Yeah.
Standing there on the beach. That's what this movie is. It's like all the scenes are, like, in the middle of something that's already happening. And it just jumps to the next
no time
scene.
to explain.
Because look, that's what somebody told the dentist who wrote this. Okay, you want to start in the middle of the action. Okay, you don't want to take too long with the setup. You want to really pull the audience in. So he took that to heart.
To be fair to our dentist screenwriter friend, this was rewritten extensively by the director. So he added in all the spy elements and stuff because he was a big fan of James Bond and he wanted to incorporate all that stuff in there. So I don't know how close this is to the original concept.
That makes a lot more sense too, and also leans into why while watching this I went, Sam probably will like this because this fits what my perception of James Bond is, not knowing actually what James Bond really is.
I know that the dentist's original concept, Kobayashi, he didn't have two forms for Biollante. He only had her finally arrive at a size that could fight Godzilla at the end, and instead the warm-up fight was a second genetic abomination that was a combination of a fish and a rat called Dutalios. And it was cut for budget, apparently. So apparently that was the only thing they saw wrong with that idea.
That's a bummer. There's nothing more I would like to see than a combo of those two animals.
But speaking of alternates, maybe Brandon can clear this up for me, because I don't actually know how these two pieces go together, if they were two separate ideas, or if they both led into each other. But remember how we talked about how Godzilla just kind of seems to stop and go away for no reason at the end of the movie? When they were originally filming this, they did some special effects shots that sort of tell an alternate, certainly wilder but more convincing story of how that went down. They have this scene where Biollante transforms into a spirit and devours Godzilla as some sort of magical seal. And that presumably would have led into the Erica's headshot floating through the air bit.
So they kind of would have died or transformed together.
Yeah, and then the second bit, which I believe follows it, although I'm not sure, is the Biollante spores would come down and create all these flowers all over the hills. And so when Godzilla woke up, there would be a visual like reminder of his opponent, like almost like a warning sign to not come back, which would have given him an actual reason to go into the ocean and not come back on land.
Or I feel like it hits even more into this kind of like, Brandon, what you brought up earlier of like, they are of the same, you know, they are kind of together. Like it's kind of I see it as kind of like a more peaceful ending, but definitely more of a resolve than we got. Because I feel like the whole film, they were like, oh, Godzilla's coming. And then at the end, they were like, okay, bye. Like, it still was like, he's still going to just come back at some point. Are we not concerned about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting ending, and I do wish they would have. It certainly makes for a more compelling and dramatic ending,
Yeah.
I think. I think that it just is the execution. It would have been really jarring to all of a sudden go to like an anime in the middle of there. Like, other than that, I feel like it would have been good. It's just that animation, I think, really, I guess, was the one thing that really. I think there's some stop motion in there too, but made them hesitate and change the ending. They thought it was too jarring.
Yeah, I feel like even without the animation, though, it would have been a good idea to keep the flowers, which they claim they cut because they looked out of scale, but I don't buy that. Like, why couldn't they just be giant flowers? And I don't even think, if you do think they're out of scale, I don't even think that's the biggest mistake that's in the movie.
It just brings the Erica plotline more full circle, too.
Well, it just gives the movie a resolution in the way that him just arbitrarily leaving and then talking about snoring does not.
Do we have any remaining thoughts on the movie before we get to the judgments?
Oh, I do want to do a shout out for that moment where they had that kind of bright light that the girl was using to draw the rose. Loved that moment. Just want to highlight it as a key fave for me.
I remember using one of those when I was a kid, I feel like. And yeah, when I see that scene, I'm like, I have vague memories of using that same thing.
It reminds me of kid pics.
Yeah.
But yeah, the image of the rose in space is definitely a little cheesy, but I also think it's beautiful and eerie, so I like the rose floating up in space idea.
Also, I just want to say the whole Godzilla just leaving, get used to that.
Yeah, he does that a lot.
Yay. Really selling us on...
Oh, will he be back? I'm sure he will.
I think there's usually at least somewhat of an excuse compared to this one, though. Whereas this one, he's just like, I'm tired.
I mean, he was tired. He was drugged up and everything, and he was just like, you know what? I'm over this fight. I'm gone.
So, as Godzillavangelists, it is our holy duty to assign this movie its proper place in Godzilla Heaven, Hell, or Purgatory. With Heaven being the best, Purgatory being in the middle, and Hell being the worst. So we've tipped our hands a bit, but let's start off with Joanna.
Oh boy. Yeah, for me, the fight was great. The final fight scene, you know, some of the rose stuff, the rose petals falling, all made me think of Beauty and the Beast, very pretty. But in general, the plot didn't do it for me. I thought there was a bit too much going on, no reason to really dive in or care about these plot points and characters that they were saying we should really care about. Even something like the whole, oh, these cells, you know, this biological method will eat up nuclear cells, all that stuff. I'm like, that'd take longer, and I just don't trust that as plot. And the Erica thing I found a bit corny because we had no real relationship to that woman. She died so quickly. So for me, I'm putting it in Hell. Sorry, guys.
Wow.
So you can all fight me on that and leave your comments.
You have a right to put it in Hell. I understand.
I did love the kids part, though. You know you throw children in a film, and I love it so much.
Great scene.
But yeah, just didn't do it for me.
One scene is heaven for you, right?
That one scene is particularly Heaven.
All right.
And some of the electric guitar.
Should I go next?
Sure, go for it.
So I'm going to bring this movie up from the depths of hell that Joanna put it in, which is also just a shout out for a YouTube channel you should be watching. And I'm going to say that it's tough. I actually had a hard time thinking about where I would put this because it is a mess, and there are a lot of things that don't work in it. But I feel like with these movies, I either want, and just in general, I either want something that is really sound in story, or I want spectacle. And, it's the original one, I think mostly is just a very sound, symbolism-wise is very sound. Some of these I felt like have given me neither. This one gave me spectacle, and I said, you know what, there's enough fun in some of these action scenes, there are enough crazy ideas that I enjoyed it and went, I'm glad I watched that. So on that, I say it's a messy movie. It isn't a great movie, but it is a Godzilla heaven.
Well said. I'll build right off of that. As I mentioned, I'm a little lower on it than it was in my memory, but on the other hand, I feel like that's what this movie does. You watch it, and in the moment, you're like, oh, there's all these problems with it. But as you leave it, they all fade away, and it's a pleasant memory, and you just remember, oh, that was a cool idea. Wasn't that a cool fight scene? At least for me. So I feel like as time goes, as I get more distance from the movie, I like what it goes for, and I always love the big swings it takes, the big ambitions, because the rest of this series takes Godzilla to a very corporate approved place we haven't seen him before, which is very sad coming after something this ambitious. I feel like they could have built on it better. So for ambition and for the highlights, I'll give it heaven with an acknowledgement that there are a lot of problems with it. All right, take us home, Brandon.
Yeah, I think echoing what you guys are saying, I acknowledge that this movie has a lot of flaws. It's very messy. I equate it to a shotgun blast of narrative. Just threw everything they thought of in there, and nothing's too deep as a result. But there are enough nuggets of really interesting ideas, especially in relation to the Godzilla franchise as a whole. And then you combine that with the sheer spectacle, because this movie really pushed the art form of special effects for these types of movies to a new level. And they don't really get, this is the top in this era. They kind of stagnate after this. They don't really push themselves forward after this point. And so because of the sheer ambition and the fact that it delivers so much Godzilla goodness, you could say, because this movie gives you a lot of Godzilla.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like it has the most screen time of any of the movies, because he's in it a lot. But for being a nice balance of ambition and delivering the spectacle that you want out of a Godzilla film, I will definitely put this in heaven.
All right, not quite a straight flush, but close. So going on to our closing here, I am a little short on fan messages, so please send us more.
Send us a note.
Ryan, quick, make one up right now.
Quick, Ryan.
Improvise a fan message.
I don't have to make something up. I have some Twitter responses.
Oh,
that's what I'm going to do today. These are a couple of replies to a recent question we put out on social media. And I actually have to thank you for boosting it, Brandon. We've had some of our best social media posts ever when you retweet it. But anyway, this question was, Akira Ifubuke's score is probably the best part of Terror of Mechagodzilla. What's your favorite Godzilla score? So, one reply from @Primeval said, the Terror of Mechagodzilla score is amazing. Love the slowed down version of the classic March theme with a little harmonic minor thrown in. And the new theme for Titanosaurus / Mechagodzilla is so good. Ominous and powerful. I believe that was from a composer, so they really got into the musicality of it. Second reply from @C_Furman said either the 1984 Godzilla or 1974 Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. I'm surprised my favorite Godzilla score isn't one of a Fubuke's. I like both of those too, as I said on Twitter, both in my top 10. Real quick, what are you guys' favorite Godzilla scores?
Oh, I'm not going to be able to have a significant vote in this. I'll think on it. I apologize.
You don't remember one?
Yeah, I mean, I suffer from recency bias, so I'm going to have to say Biollante.
Oh, no.
That BioWare's theme is just top notch.
It is memorable.
It is memorable. I would say my favorite is one of my favorites is one that you guys haven't watched yet, but you'll get to, is the Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2 score from this era. It's done by Akira Ifukube. I just have always really liked his Mechagodzilla theme for that movie. It's just very powerful and militaristic.
Mm-hmm. Which is funny because it's built off this ominous Mechagodzilla theme. It's very interesting. He made it like a hero theme, even though... Well, we'll get to it when we get to the movie. I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, all good choices. This is a tough call for me. It might just be King Kong versus Godzilla, though, because, I mean, that's the OG, right? Although
I'm sorry, did you say Godzilla versus Kong? Godzilla versus Kong is your favorite score?
King Kong versus Godzilla. Different. Very different.
You're not saying it like how Yoda says it, where he meant Godzilla versus Kong?
No. Although, the original Mothra versus Godzilla also very close, because I love all of the Mothra songs. But in any case, if you want to answer cool questions like this, follow us on all our social media. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Subscribe to us wherever you listen to your podcast so you get every episode as soon as it arrives. Share us with your friends, family. Send us lovely messages. Best of all, you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Those mean the world to us. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Very, very fun having you here.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun too.
Apart from your channel, do you have anything to share with our audience?
No, I mean, I guess my channel's called Up From the Depths, and then on Twitter, my handle is @FromTheDepths88. So if you want to follow me and whatever is on my mind I throw out there, you can find me there.
So please go do that and subscribe to the channel because it's excellent. He's got a great back catalog. So yes, dear Godzilla Evangelists, thank you for joining us. We will be back with Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, the return of our golden friend.
Ooh, fun times.
Any last things to share, Sam or Joanna?
I can't believe we've almost made it to the 90s.
We'll be there next time. We'll
I
be in
know.
1991.
Holy crap, goodbye to the 80s. What a trip it's been.
Yeah, weren't in the 80s very long, but boy were we in the 60s for a long time.
Boy, were we in the
Yeah.
60s for forever.
We were in the 60s for like actual years of this podcast.
We were.
The 80s just flew right by in a month. Which I think is probably true of a lot of people who lived through the 80s with all the cocaine that was being done.
Yeah,
I'm sure it flew right by.
but accurate.
Well, in any case, dear Godzilla Evangelists, thank you for listening and keep spreading the word of Godzilla. Godzilla Evangelists is brought to you by me, Ryan Sargent, and my friends, Joanna Brodecki and Sam Schlenker. All our incredible music is composed by Robert Mai, and our wonderful artwork is drawn by Cassidy Stone. This episode was edited by Dylan Jones. Special thanks to our families, friends, and the wonderful artists who made the movies we talked about today. Godzilla Evangelists is a satirical, critical work, not affiliated or endorsed by Toho, Legendary Pictures, or anyone behind the Godzilla series. Visit our website at GodzillaEvangelists.com. We're also on Twitter at GodzillaCast and Instagram at Godzillavangelists. If you prefer to listen to us online, we have a YouTube channel. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you join us next episode. In the meantime, keep spreading the word of Godzilla.